The firebombing of my house. This event, I would have much preferred that the New South Wales Police handled, failing that any responsible authority, yet so far every single person or institution with an obligation to investigate has mysteriously declined or just plain failed. Apart from Kate McClymont at the Sydney Morning Herald, who needs to be given immense credit for her work on this saga. But very little credit can be given to other journalists and authorities who not only seem ambivalent about properly investigating the firebombing, but downright hostile to any potential action that could threaten to expose those responsible. And now, we know a few of the reasons as to why this has been the case. And these are very concerning reasons. As such, today I feel like I've been left with no choice but to again address the firebombing, as I've waited 3 years for the police to do something. And during these 3 years, I've not only watched them pass by on numerous chances to solve this mystery, but also somehow, for some mysterious reason, downright actually reject good leads that I've been aware of. No follow-up or interest. It's been a joke. There's been more interest in the police determining what accelerant was used to burn down my house than convicting the people who ordered it. So, I hope this video will get some proactive cops interested in finally charging the people responsible for burning down my house, or at least flush out what the hell is happening in the New South Wales Police, one of the largest, most powerful, well-equipped police forces in the Western world, that has, in my estimation, seen a single journalist publicly uncover more about the firebombing than the entire force combined. As you probably know, in 2022, my house was firebombed because of a video I made. A video which I was forced to take down a year after the firebombing, after threats on my life and the lives of others were attempted to be passed on to me via a former Mongols bikie sergeant-at-arms gangster turned Four Corners journalist, Mahmoud Fazal. Yes, Four Corners. Ostensibly the most prestigious investigative journalism institution in Australia, the esteemed flagship, no less, of our dear public broadcaster, the ABC. Allow me to reiterate, as that is really hard to capture just how damning this is. A Four Corners journalist was meeting with heavy organised crime figures, then sending through demands purportedly on behalf of those figures, threatening that if I failed to remove my investigation into these figures, myself and people around me would die. This story was exposed by Kate McClymont in the Sydney Morning Herald over a year ago, though I never spoke about it in depth. You can read it if you want more context, it's brilliant work, but the important takeaway is this. When faced with an abundance of new evidence relating to the firebombing, the evidence that was more than enough at the very least to charge a few people, what did the New South Wales Police do? As far as I'm aware, nothing. Nothing substantive, at least. I tried to question the Four Corners journalist who passed on these threats, but according to New South Wales Police, he refused to provide a statement. Shouldn't that ring a few alarm bells? Shouldn't that open up further avenues of inquiry when conveying threats in of itself can be an offence? Apparently not. This is every criminal's dream treatment. Burn down a house, threaten to kill people, have it reported to police, and then the police do nothing. I thought the police would do something. I shut up for them. I didn't release material I had, as the police said it could hamper their investigations. Now in hindsight, I think it would have been safer to put out what I knew. And then what did the national broadcaster do when faced with the fact that their reporter was telling people that he was going to meetings with gangland murderers in order to find out what death threats and messages to pass on to? I guess in this context I'll have to call myself a journalist, as my stories are certainly more consequential than the utter swill Four Corners pumps out. The ABC did nothing. Well, they didn't do nothing. Do you want to know what they actually did? They defended Mahmoud Fazal. They defended this man with his self-advertised gangster history and disproof against him, who slanderously claimed that Kate McClymont's article on the threats that he passed on were based on, how's this? Ethnic stereotyping. And the self-proclaimed greatest, most hard-nosed investigative journalist in the country believed him. I can assure you that absolutely nothing in Kate McClymont's article is incorrect, and considering McClymont's track record, it would take a very creative, brave, or perhaps just in way too deep ABC management type to chuck an idiot bead and dismiss serious allegations as simply racist stereotyping. But it looks like that's what happened. The ABC were even offered multiple times hard documentary evidence to back up McClymont's claims, should they want to investigate these serious allegations, evidence that they refused to even look at. In light of, I have to stress, grave allegations, death threats from one of their reporters. Which brings us to now, where even more damning news about Mahmoud Fazal is coming out, news that, to be honest, is really scaring me. First, he was in the news over a lover's quarrel with his now former podcast host, independent reporter Ryan Nemenko, a man with a similar story to Fazal, as he describes himself as part journalist, part outlaw. This was covered by Media Watch, but to quickly explain, Fazal and Nemenko started a podcast. Fazal, when getting permission for this podcast from the ABC, reportedly told his executive producer that it was unpaid. Nemenko claims that when it came to payment, Fazal and a man who had been the subject of Fazal's Four Corners stories in the past, former cocaine dealer Ben Aitken, demanded cash from Nemenko immediately. This really pissed off Nemenko. Anyway, you can watch the Media Watch episode on the beef if you want the details of Fazal's denials of demanding cash for the podcast, and then the text and bank details released by Nemenko, which appear to contradict those denials. Why is this interesting? Check the front page of the Sydney Morning Herald. Nemenko has provided what he claims are further texts between himself and Fazal, in which Fazal says, quote, "Jordies and his people, they're dogs, I want to kill him so bad." Yeah. The man who I know for a fact said he was meeting with organised crime figures in order to ascertain what message to send to me from them, the man who ABC and police failed to investigate, is now reported to have said he wants to kill me. So bad. There's more in these text chains, which is just as damning. But before I get into them, I want to note that, as reported by Kate McClymont, Fazal has claimed that one of the text messages is fabricated and the others merely taken out of context. Now, just to editorialise a little, knowing a bit about the background of this story, it would have taken a very sophisticated writer with insider knowledge of the entire situation and a deep grasp of Fazal's prose to fake any of these messages. Having seen the original chains, it's very difficult to see how these could possibly even be taken out of context. Plus, even if just some of these texts are real, as Fazal himself has now implied, that's enough of an indictment on Fazal and the ABC in of itself. I also want to add that Fazal has denied allegations in the past that I know are quantifiably true, backed up by text. One that springs to mind instantly is passing on threats for organised crime. Compound that with his denials and then the contradictions of those denials with evidence detailed in the latest Media Watch, and I really don't trust his word. At all. So let's see what the chain said. Some context, the day earlier I released this video about the conviction of Toofy, whatever his name is, for firebombing my house. I made this oblique reference to Fazal. Why do the Alameddines, an organised crime gang, give so much access to certain ABC journalists? Why is the ABC so ardent in defending these certain journalists? In response, Nemenko has claimed that he and Fazal had this exchange. Ryan Nemenko, we all sweet to do Ep 2, or has that issue with Shanks rattled ya? If you did what you did, just f***ing own it. Why lie? Never ends well, brother. Mahmoud Fazal, Jordies and his people, they're dogs. I want to kill him so bad. Ryan Nemenko, are you f***ing serious? Over something you didn't do? Leave it. It's not your place. Mahmoud Fazal, bro, Alameddine still want to hit me. I need to make up to him with this pod and we will kill it. Better him than me, but f*** him, we should do a pod on that and get my story out. Ryan Nemenko, nah, leave it, it's not worth it. Seriously, Jordies is a nerd, bro. He's not part of OC, that's organised crime. Why hit a house over a story? It's f***ing gay. You should know how bad it was when I had to cop all that shit. Just leave it. I'm not willing to speak about it because let's be real, you sent the f***ing threats. They f***ed you. Mahmoud Fazal, nah, he has to get what he gets. He's a dog, ratted me to Jax. Jax means police. Now, I want to be fair here. Mahmoud, can you tell me which one of these texts is out of context? Keep in mind, I have a bunch of screenshots of the original chains. Was make it up to the Alameddines with the podcast out of context? Do elaborate on how. I'd love to hear it, because if it's not out of context, if organised crime has a man in Four Corners, supposedly the most prestigious investigative journalism institution in Australia, if their guy has fooled, well, I was going to say the smartest investigative journalist in the country, but let's be honest, if you can't follow up on an offer for evidence as a journalist, you're atrocious. But if organised crime has a guy in the ABC, I have very little doubt that a sprawling institution such as the New South Wales Police has been compromised to some degree. I'd love to be proven wrong. So please, New South Wales Police, can you make a substantial arrest It's actually unbelievable that after 3 years you have no one. There is something really weird going on. There's also more texts. Mahmoud Fazal. Yes, last 5 seconds. Why do certain journalists get access to the Alameddines? Ryan Nemenko. See, he's a sly dog. Mahmoud Fazal. And he has my story behind him. He's a f***ing rat. Ryan Nemenko. Yeah, bro. Bad. Now, in the wake of these leaks, Mahmoud is desperately trying to paint Nemenko as a dishonest actor, stating in an email to the Sydney Morning Herald, Ryan Nemenko has a criminal history, a history of harassment, and a documented record of dishonesty. As a journalist, you should know that background is material when assessing his reliability and motives as your source. How does he not see how hypocritical that is? Mahmoud, didn't you claim McClymont was relying on your background to stereotype you when she relied entirely on hard evidence for her claims? Now you're relying solely on Nemenko's background to refute text chains, some of which you yourself have tacitly admitted were real, just out of context. Again, how? What's the context in which any of this is okay? Please enlighten us. Plus, you have provided no hard evidence to the contrary, just Nemenko's background. That's not fair on Nemenko. Furthermore, if Nemenko is a liar, if he has, in your words, a criminal history, a history of harassment, and a documented record of dishonesty, why start a business with him? Why start a journalistic endeavour with him, where the sole purpose should be to expose the truth? But I guess if those character traits are good enough for the ABC, they're good enough for Fazal. Seriously, this really needs to be emphasised because this is so damning, and not just Fazal, but the entire ABC as an institution. What is a Four Corners journalist doing passing on threats to other journalists and demanding cash from this person? And why did it take until now for the ABC to even acknowledge that that might be a problem? Mahmoud has more to say about me. I don't know why he's crying. Seriously, comes with the territory. You want to shit on gangsters and make fun of them in your video. Ryan Nemenko. Ha 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 ha. That's what I said watching it. Mahmoud Fazal. The world's not your little bubble on the internet. Bro, this fell off hard. His videos are getting 100 to 150k roughly. I wonder if this video will get more than 150k. Let's see. Why am I crying? Firebombing comes with the territory? Yeah. I guess it does come with my territory, my reporting, but certainly not yours, Mahmoud. The only time you piss off organised crime figures is by accident, when your attempts at jobs and favours to make up to them blow up in everyone's faces. Look at Mahmoud Fazal's repertoire of reporting. I can't think of one instance in which his access to these crime figures has produced anything revelatory or negative about organised crime. He's never revealed any political connections, never any strange financial deals, any malfeasance that the authorities failed to pick up on. He's not an investigative reporter. He makes Gardening Australia or Woman's Weekly style interviews for crims. It doesn't even expose anything or pass the basic fundamentals of what journalism supposedly is, which is a quest for the truth. Showing a bunch of crims talking about how honourable they are and how they never break codes. All criminals break the code. They're all ratting on each other all the time. If you're in a milieu where murder is commonplace, a milieu where the only abiding principle is amorality for financial gain, who's seriously dumb enough to buy the idea that there's a code that people follow? But that's the point. His reporting serves as a purpose to enforce the convenient myths around organised crime in Australia, to keep the right people afraid and the right people impressed by these gross displays of violence. It's very clear in this where Fazal's sympathy lies. It's sympathy for criminals, sympathy for murderers, sympathy for traffickers, sympathy for business, taking our tax money to try and sell the Australian public the fiction that wealthy crime magnates are some sort of downtrodden, forgotten people, forced into poverty, into crime, and picked on by the Australian establishment. When any shred of investigative reporting would reveal that in Australia these figures are wealthy and exploitative entrepreneurs fueled not by desperation but a deep culture of familial amoralism. The leaders of these groups are not ostracised by Sydney's establishment but are in fact increasingly ingratiated with them, welcomed with open arms. It's not anti-establishment or brave to celebrate millionaires just because they made their millions screwing over people outside of the law. It's adolescent as hell, and it's an indictment on the ABC and the Gen X managers there who are so out of touch, so desperate for younger viewers, that they desecrated an already anemic Four Corners, forcing it to produce crime porn, slop, propaganda slop, tailor-made for organised crime. Make an arrest. Make an arrest, you cowards.